Welcome to Cheryl Antonio, the Untold story. This podcast is about the disappearance and suspected murder of Rachel Joy Antonio from Bowen, 1998. Firstly, I would like to tell you a bit more about the background of Rachel's disappearance so that you know basically the details of the situation. Rachel Antonio was a 16-year-old girl who disappeared on the evening of Anzac Day, the 25th of April 1998, when she didn't come home after she was dropped off between approximately 6 and 6:15 p.m. to attend a movie theatre to watch the movie Good Will Hunting. The movie theatre was located at Queens Beach, Bowen, North Queensland. This is the 20th year since her disappearance. She has not been seen or heard from since the 25th of April 1998. As I said before, her disappearance was treated as a suspected murder from the beginning. Rachel's disappearance has captured a significant amount of attention in Australia, and particularly Queensland and the North Queensland area, and had a very large impact on the small community of Bowen. Basically, there are a few different possible explanations that need to be considered. These include that Rachel either chose to disappear and is discreetly living somewhere else, which is unlikely, that Rachel chose to disappear and is being actively hidden by others, which also seems unlikely, that she went off on an innocent adventure on her own and somehow died a natural death, yet her body has never been located. That's, I suppose, a bit more likely than the previous two, but still fairly unlikely. That she went on an adventure of her own free will and somehow her death has been concealed. That she has met with an unfortunate accident of some kind that was caused by another, but the incident had been unreported. For example, a car crash where she was a pedestrian, circumstances like that. That she'd committed suicide, but that doesn't explain why her body has never been found. And the most likely, in my opinion, scenario is that she was murdered. So, going into the background of Rachel Antonio's situation. Rachel Antonio was the fourth child of Ian and Cheryl Antonio. She grew up in Bowen and had a very routine childhood with no major issues or incidents whatsoever. Bowen is an extremely small town. When I had visited Bowen, it was very surprising to me exactly how small it was. I remember someone once commented to me that the whole town of Bowen has no traffic lights, and I thought that was very bizarre. And when I visited there around, I think it was July 2014, I noticed there were no traffic lights. That, and it was a very strange, very deserted town. I'm pretty sure that the first person we even saw would have been after maybe half an hour or 45 minutes. Seemed very much like a ghost town. It was during the week too. You would have thought you would have seen people at work or walking around, but it was unbelievably deserted, I guess. So that was an interesting experience, and that sort of showed me exactly how small the town is. And when looking at all the evidence, that's definitely something that needs to be considered. So yes, anyway, Rachel was particularly good at sport when she was in primary school, and she did this into high school as well. She attended the Bowen State High School and had a lot of extracurricular activities. These included the Air Cadets and prominently being part of the Surf Life-Saving Club. Air Cadets was really important to her, and she was considering that as her career. So basically, she was going to start a particular course with the Air Cadets just 3 weeks after the date she was last seen. With the life-saving, she displayed incredible aptitude and ability. She competed regularly for her Bowen club at inter-club surf life-saving carnivals. When she was 15 years old, she was working her way up through her levels of proficiency to obtain higher qualifications in life-saving. Her Air Cadets and life-saving activities demonstrated that she had incredible discipline, dedication, and drive to complete life achievements. Rachel was described as a quiet girl at school who was successfully passing all her grades. While she was considered a quiet student, her friends described her as basically having a bit of a mischievous streak where she would play pranks or practical jokes like any teenage girl. So, well, basically, while she may have been mischievous on the rare occasion, there's never any suggestion that she was in any way considered to be ill-disciplined, just rather playful and, yeah, as they say, had a bit of a mischievous streak. Rachel was very much loved by her family and had a very, very strong relationship with her mother. Since she was last seen on the evening of the 25th of April 1998, there's been no contact whatsoever from Rachel with her family, friends, or authorities. There was no credible evidence whatsoever that Rachel intended to leave home that evening, intending to live elsewhere, as one of the possibilities suggest. One of the biggest parts of this story is evidence that was actually located a while later. This was a handwritten diary that Rachel had kept that the police had found during a search of her bedroom. It was located in a secret position, like most diaries, obviously, as she wanted to keep it a secret, as it contained a lot of very personal thoughts. Whilst the diary was admitted into evidence, it must be kept in mind that you can't give 100% weight to every part of what was written there. After all, she's a teenage girl, may have had an active imagination, so these things need to be investigated. The diary entries cover a range of events of importance to any teenage girl. They also cover a very significant period of time, as most of the entries were fairly recent before her disappearance. The thing was, that in the investigation of the diary, a lot of these events, almost all of them, were independently verified by facts that could be proven or witness statements that confirmed what she was saying was true. The diary contained entries that had occurred involving Rachel, that it was basically happening days before she disappeared. Throughout the coronial inquest, there was a lot of evidence given by witnesses, and their recollection of events was consistent, which was with what was recorded in Rachel's diaries. So basically, there was no doubt that the circumstances of how the diary was hidden, where it was found, the handwriting matched to Rachel, the content, the events. There was no doubt at all that this was a genuine diary written by Cheryl Antonio. So, one of the biggest, I suppose, things in this entire mystery is Rachel's relationship with an older guy named Robert Hitch. He was 24 at the time, and she was only 15. So basically, it had to be determined whether or not they actually were in a relationship, and it wasn't just a fantasy that Rachel had and wrote in her diary about. So basically, it also needs to be determined whether, particularly because she was only 15 years old, whether this relationship was an intimate, sexually active relationship. Robert Hitch has denied this to this day. He basically says he had never been alone with her, and he most certainly was not in a relationship with her. And this is another controversial thing because he was in the Surf Life-Saving Club. He's 24. She's 15. It's a small town. Even if there was any interaction that was innocent and could be misinterpreted or misconstrued by people in the community, it was going to be a problem, particularly for Robert Hitch, because he's older and should basically know better. So basically, the diary created some problems for Robert Hitch. Having the diary evidence at the inquest gave a distinct advantage over the two criminal trials that Robert Hitch faced about Rachel's murder. The advantages for the inquest was the evidence presented at the criminal trials, basically had omitted the diary entries as they were considered inadmissible at that time. The diary kept by Rachel, and also letters that Rachel had written to her friend, Ms. Alex Ginger, were extremely credible. Later, when the law changed and the diary was admitted into evidence, it was also an advantage because it would mean that it would be the first time that Robert Hitch was able to be cross-examined. The diary details have certain encounters between Rachel and Robert Hitch. The encounters in the diary were extremely explicit as to what Rachel recorded and that had allegedly occurred. Basically, this included not only their interactions, but the interactions that they had with other people when they had been together. So the diary entries basically give an account that they were in a relationship, and basically it was an intimate boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, at least from her perspective. It then progressed to a sexual relationship, which the diary also detailed. Robert Hitch's evidence on whether there was a relationship was extremely succinct and very clear. Basically, he had just continuously denied the fact of having any relationship with Rachel Antonio. The diary suggesting quite the opposite, suggesting and giving examples of a far more intimate, personal and sexual relationship, is inconsistent with his repeated denials. Evidence from the diary alone is very highly suggestive of the intimate relationship, but we cannot rely on that completely. The letters that she wrote to the friend of hers, Alex Ginger, who at that time lived in Victoria, were consistent with Rachel's diary entries. So this is definitely an interesting part of this whole mystery, and basically places Robert Hitch as the prime suspect, which he was from the beginning, obviously, as it had proceeded to 2 criminal trials. In the next episode, we shall go into more